IGA being Identity Lifecycle Management or Provisioning and Access Governance, and Access Management being everything around authenticating, federating, web SSO, etc. your users. So in many of the projects and many of the customer talks I had over the past years, and specifically the last 18 to 24 months, there were a lot of questions about identity management modernization. For many of these businesses, there's the situation that they feel they need to modernize both their IGA and their access management. Running both projects in parallel might be just too complex, just too expensive, just consuming too much of management capacity, etc. So the question that comes up very quickly is where to start, what to do first. There's no simple answer and no single answer on that for sure. So first it depends on what are your requirements, what are your pain points, what are your challenges. If you have one part which still runs quite well and one which is really not at the level you'd like to have it, then there's a logic in saying let's start with the that part which is more in trouble, which is really requires a faster modernization. However, if it's, and that's a scenario we've talked through with customers a couple of times, if you're in a situation where you say, I really should do both in a not too distant future, then the question is, what is the better place to start and what is easier to handle? From an order of doing the things, my experience is you can start on both ends. You can start on the IGA side, you can start on the access management side. Both works well. If you start with a new access management on top of your old IGA or the other way around, both should in virtually every situation work well. It is also a question of what is the easier thing to do, what is the less expensive thing to do. And when we look at projects where existing access management solutions have been replaced, these might be not easy to do. So if you have dozens or hundreds or maybe even over 1,000, we have seen these scenarios, web applications you need to integrate into your new access management, which don't support federation standards such as SAML, don't support standards such as OAuth2, then there's a lot of work to do. But it's still relatively simple and the transition can be done in a relatively straightforward manner. So yes, there's a lot of work to do, but it is something which you can handle usually quite well if you plan right, if you choose the right tool. And we at KuppingerCole, we have all this guidance around the architecture blueprints, your roadmaps, the running a tools choice, etc. When we look on the other hand at IGA modernization, then you are facing a couple more challenges. One is there's a lot of workflows or processes in this joiner, mover, lever, application onboarding, managing your entitlement models, etc. All these processes are in there, and they are usually coded in a very specific manner in your existing IGA solution. There will, in virtually no situation, a way to just port these workflows and processes to your new solution. You need to start from scratch. You probably even need to start with redoing your process definition to sort of modernize that part as well. And then there are the connectors on the other side. So you have a bunch of connectors, and some of them are not easy to migrate. There are, as we all know, which are in the IGA field for a while, there are some connectors or some target systems which are more difficult to handle. Shifting all these connectors from your existing to your new solution also is not a simple task. IGA modernization commonly is significantly more expensive and complex than access management modernization. And that might be a good reason for saying I start with the access management piece and then I do the other part, unless there's a really urgent need for modernizing your IGA. What also plays into that is that your new identity management most likely will at least support some more as a service deployment model, be more flexible in the deployment models. And when we look at access management, then we have a broad range of offerings that support hybrid or pure cloud deployment models, which are very flexible. In IGA, on the other hand, a lot still is on premises, and it's a transition which is happening here, but we are not yet through with that journey. So it also, from that perspective, might make more sense to wait a little longer, start with access management, and give the IGA space some, whatever, 18, 24, 36 months more for the vendors to make the transition to modern deployment models. So overall, there's a tendency, I would say, to say start the modernization with access management and then IGA, not the other way around. But there might be, as I've said, reasons to do it the other way around. And by the way, you always should have a clear perspective on how the future should look like. Read what we have published and look at all the videos we have published around what we call identity fabrics. This might give you a very good idea on how your future identity access management blueprint should look like.